Is 2024 the season of the Detroit Lions? Is this the season the Lions finally break through and finally capture a Super Bowl championship? What's going on, Lions fans? It's Mitch here. I was going to give you stat after stat after stat, but instead I'm just going to rip it and give you the bottom line, which is that this 2024 is the season of the Detroit Lions. I believe the Detroit Lions in 2024 will have the best chance that they've ever had to capture a Super Bowl, to win the NFC, to go all the way. In 2023, the Detroit Lions finally arrived. The culture of Dan Campbell and what he built when everybody laughed at him about biting kneecaps. What was that? We're not laughing now. You're not laughing now. Fans across the NFC and the NFL are not laughing about the Detroit Lions anymore. They are no longer a laughing stock. What they are is a contender. What they are is the real deal. The Detroit Lions are not losers. The Detroit Lions are lethal. And in 2024, the culture is confirmed. Their status, sensational. This year is going to be epic. Let's explain why. The Detroit Lions in 2023 made a statement in the opening game of the season. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning and still defending Super Bowl champs. At the end of the year, they had a heartbreaking, earth-shattering loss to the San Francisco 49ers. Both teams met in the Super Bowl. But what they did through the course of 2023 was establish that they can hang. That they can hang with the top dogs in the NFC, in the AFC, in the NFL. And now they have experience. And with experience, heartbreak comes expectations. And in 2024, they will live up to those expectations. It all starts at the line of scrimmage. The Detroit Lions have, in my opinion, the best offensive line in the NFL. And I couldn't say that last year, because last year, the Philadelphia Eagles still existed. They had a man named Jason Kelce. No longer do they have Jason Kelce. Now the Detroit Lions definitively have the best offensive line in the league. One of the best tackle duos in the NFL. Decker and Mr. Sewell. One of the premier young players in the NFL. One of the best duos that are really going to dominate in the pass game and the running game. In the interior, they have three vets, led by Frank Ragnow at center, one of the game's best centers, arguably the game's best overall center, who powers the running game. Graham Glasgow, and now a new Kevin Zeitler, another veteran added to the mix last season, a Pro Bowler with the Baltimore Ravens, has been a many-time Pro Bowler across his NFL career, playing with the Bengals, I believe for a minute with the Giants, the Ravens, and now the Lions. This offensive line, this starting five, dictates the game to their opponent. This allows the Lions to have one of, if not the best, pure rushing attack from their running backs in the NFL. At any time, they can run the ball for 4 or 5 yards a clip with ease against any defense. It really doesn't matter. We saw that in the playoffs. And with that running game, it allows Jared Goff to play his best football, which is play action football, play action pass, where they feature the middle of the field as well as any offense in the NFL, thanks to their extraordinary play caller named Ben Johnson. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a premier receiver. Sam Laporta is in year 2, and he could be the best tight end in the NFL this year. Jahmyr Gibbs might be the best running back in the NFL this year, also entering year 2. He still got another one like David Montgomery. The offense has enough weapons, and it has an X factor named Jameson Williams who can fly high, and really run pretty fast. And Jameson Williams, I was a believer in coming out of college. I thought he was going to be the real deal. I thought he was going to be a number 1 receiver in this league. And he's yet to prove that. I don't know if he'll ever become that. But if he can become a number 2, that at least can threaten defenses vertically, that can make them worry about him flying by their secondary and hitting them with a big play occasionally, it's going to open up the running game. It's going to open up the middle of the field, the areas that the Lions truly want to attack. It's going to get the football to Jahmyr Gibbs underneath on a screen or a little flat pass or maybe a little angle route or option route over the middle of the field. It's going to allow them to work an option route or a stick to Sam Laporta or a deep in-breaker or a crosser to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson is the X factor, especially now that Reynolds has left. A pretty reliable overall number 2, number 3 receiver, despite the drops he had in the NFC Championship game. The offense is one of the league's best, and it's regularly, I think, underrated because they don't have a Patrick Mahomes or a Josh Allen. They don't have a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill. They don't have a big name like Travis Kelce at tight end. And they don't have a Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay attached. But what they have is one of the most balanced units in the NFL, a team that can play from ahead, as well as any offense in the NFL, thanks to their running game and their offensive line and their ability to keep defenses on their toes with that play calling, with the personnel usage of multi-tight ends, multi-backs, and multi-receivers. They can pretty much play in any sort of dimension or personnel that you like, and they can attack any defense in any form or fashion. They can play from behind because they have an excellent offensive line that can protect and buy Jared Goff time. And when it comes 2-minute situations, Goff will have time to pick apart secondaries and get to a chain mover such as Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have players that are entering year 2 or year 3, like Williams, like Laporta, like Gibbs, who could be taking a big step in their development and becoming premier players at their positions. That's not even mentioning that Penei Sewell could still have some potential that is untapped as maybe the league's best tackle in the NFL come 2024. So the overall offense is stacked. It's loaded. They can hit you with a power running game. They can hit you with a spread passing game. They can beat you underneath at the intermediate or the deep levels of the field, especially if Jameson Williams comes to play. But overall, we know they have elite playmakers. They have elite play calling. They have a good quarterback. I would not call him elite, but he's good, and he's the distributor. Everybody on this team believes in him, and he fits what they do to a T. He's tough in the pocket. He takes hits to make throws, and he's one of the best intermediate throwers of the football in the sport. If Jared Goff this season can play as well as he did last year, and maybe even a hint better come playoff time, this team can beat anybody in the league. All Goff really has to do is in that fourth quarter, that moment where a team is going to get in on a pass rush, a Nick Bosa, right? Or let's say a Jalen Carter. Or let's say, who's another NFC contender that they might see? Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary. If one of those guys comes through and is running at Jared Goff, and it's 3rd and 8, and they need to convert, Can he step to the right and make that throw? There's going to be a couple throws that he's going to have to make. In the Super Bowl, if Chris Jones is bearing down on him, if Danielle Hunter is bearing down on him, if Trey Hendrickson is coming off the edge, can he do that? And that's going to be the ultimate question for him and the ability for the Lions to win or to lose in that big spot. But you guys know the offense is loaded. It's fantastic. I love how many different players they have with different skill sets. I love how Amon-Ra, Laporta, and Gibbs are going to be great after the catch, and they attack all three levels of the middle of the field. I am really intrigued by Jameson Williams. They have other names like Donovan Peoples-Jones, Khalif Raymond, guys that I think have been slept on by others this offseason outside of Detroit that I think could potentially play a role. I've always liked Khalif Raymond as a hint of a deep threat, a third receiver, a guy with speed, a little undersized, but he can take a handoff or a little screen pass and do some damage, as well as Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I've always liked out of Cleveland. He had some good days with Baker Mayfield, and they did trade for him last year, potentially replacing Reynolds in that number 2-3 hybrid position as an outside X receiver for this offense. I don't think you could, really overlook him either. So they do have a little bit of depth at receiver. They don't have the best receiving core in the NFL, but their complement of run game, pass game, and options at all levels with dynamic weapons all over the field and a good distributor at quarterback, it makes them potentially scary for pretty much every defense because they're going to find a hole, whether it be in the run game or the pass game, whether it be your corners or your linebackers, that they're going to be able to attack and have success with. Then you get to the side of the football where I think this offseason changed the perspective of what the Lions could be. The defense of the Lions has really held them back in big moments the last couple of years. Last season, namely against the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship, and they did not fare well either against the Los Angeles Rams and Matthew Stafford or against Baker Mayfield in the Tampa Bay Bucks. They did not play great games in any of those playoff games. But the Detroit Lions fixed their biggest areas of need, I really feel. You look at first the defensive line, and the defensive line is not the best unit in the league, but what I do think they're very good at is defending the run. So think of how they're structured. They're a team that can run the ball. They're an offense built on ball possession. And they're an offense that, yes, hits explosives, but through the running game, they set up those explosives through play action in the passing game, right? Their defense could be the best run defense in the league. The way that they play, the way they're structured. And you've got McNeil and DJ Reader, who was added from the Cincinnati Bengals at defensive tackle, who's been one of the league's premier nose tackle run defenders in the league. He really has been for the last 3 or 4 years. And he's dealt with some injuries here and there, but the Lions signed him to complement McNeil and potentially unleash McNeil to the next level as a pass rusher and allow Reader to take on more of the dirty work in the run game. But the defensive line has been very good, and this defense overall the last 2 years has been darn good against the run, and last year they were a premier unit. Even the Niners weren't just running all over them, and that was probably the league's best rushing offense with Christian McCaffrey. So I look at them as a unit that they can stand up and play against the Packers, play against the Niners, play against these teams that want to run the ball, the Eagles, in the NFC. When we're thinking about their premier competition, those are probably the teams, and all of them want to be able to run the ball at a pretty high rate. The Rams would be another one. They want to run the ball, believe it or not. So having a strong rushing attack and run defense without having to resort extra bodies and extra people towards the running game, especially now adding DJ Reader and that size and that girth and that power, allows them to put more resources to the passing game. And the passing game is really where they improved a lot. Right, we'll get back to the pass rush and things like that in a second here, but the coverage is really the area the Lions needed to really improve. Because last year, they couldn't cover a number one receiver to save their darn lives. I mean, it was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, Puka Nacua went off for like a record-setting performance. Mike Evans was Mike Evans in the divisional round. And Brandon Ayuk had some of the biggest catches in that game, right? So what did they do? They went out, they addressed it. Carlton Davis, a guy that I've loved for years, right? I was on the Tampa Bay Tom Brady train, and Carlton Davis was their number one corner of that 2020 Bucs team that won the Super Bowl, 2021, 2022, etc. He's a press, feisty, man coverage corner that can play some zone, right? The great thing about Todd Bowles in Tampa Bay and how Todd Bowles' scheme also relates to the Detroit Lions and Aaron Glenn is their love for playing press man and mixing in zone and man. So they both love to blitz. They both love to play a variety of coverages. And Carlton Davis fits right in, right? I believe Aaron Glenn was a member of the Saints staff before, right? Saints staff playing Tampa a lot. Tampa, New Orleans kind of having some similar philosophies in that regard. But Carlton Davis, Marshawn Lattimore, that type of guy, right? So press man at the line of scrimmage, in your face, and he's always been at his best when he can just focus on a perimeter target who is those bigger, longer, straight line receivers. That's what he's really good at. The guys that are a little bit smaller, a little bit shiftier, like an Amon-Ra, for example, he would probably struggle with, or a guy like Cooper Kupp in his heyday. The guys like that will be a difficult matchup for him, but the guys that are like the premier X receivers of the league, he is really good at actually slowing down. I mean, Jamar Chase even said he was like the toughest matchup he's ever faced at corner outside of maybe, I think, Denzel Ward, who he has a lot of respect for. So Carlton Davis, the point being, has experience in big games, experience in a defense that likes to play hybrid, different style of coverages. He's very good in disguise. And on top of that, he is good at shutting down number one guys, or at least slowing them down to not allow them to be the feature of the offense, which is the biggest problem of Detroit's defense last year. You can't let the number one receiver in this day and age in the NFL just go off, or that opens up everything for every offense that you face, right? Then you talk about the number two corner position. Cam Sutton gone. Cam Sutton suspended. And Terrion Arnold was drafted out of Alabama. I wasn't the biggest Terrion Arnold fan as a perimeter corner, a number one in the NFL. But others were, and I will not just say that my analysis on a player is always correct. Although I might have been correct about Witherspoon and Gonzalez and those guys last year, I still feel like, Arnold could prove me wrong. I actually feel that he might be a legitimate, Pro Bowl level nickel corner. But I could see where his ability to read, his ability to play a multitude of coverages, his ability to play off coverage, and especially as a number two corner, how that would be beneficial. I also think that he is very pro-ready, which helps a team like Detroit, being that they're in a Super Bowl window. So they have two new corners, two new guys that I think can play a lot of different styles of coverage. I think Davis is going to be the guy that's assigned to number ones, while Arnold is assigned to the number two most of the time. I feel like they probably will play a little bit more zone than they've been playing in the past, just because I just feel like that's going to be the case. Maybe some zone blitzes here and there, maybe mixing in some man blitzes here and there as well. But those two corners are going to drastically help match up with opposing wide receiving corps, like the Eagles, like the Packers, who have a lot of receivers, like the Niners, who have Debo and Ayuk and Pearsall and all these guys, right? Then you get back Emmanuel Mosley, former 49er, who was a very good player in San Francisco as their number two corner most of the time. He was expected to play for the Lions last year, got injured. If he could play, he'd be a nice number four, as in behind the nickel corner, but the next up on the perimeter side of the defense in the depth chart. They also signed Amik Robertson, who has a lot of experience in and outside on the defense. He's got some versatility to him, but I thought he actually had his best season of his career with the Raiders last season. So he's an interesting add as well. He's a little bit skinnier, but he's got pretty good speed to him and very feisty. And the common theme of the Lions and their secondary is all of these guys are feisty. They're willing to tackle. They're willing to press. They're willing to get in the face. And that's the same thing with the other corner that they drafted, Ennis Rakestraw. He is somebody that I actually see more as a nickel corner or a safety at the next level. I don't think he's a perimeter corner, but his versatility of potentially playing all three spots is going to give them another layer of depth to this secondary, right? Like Brian Branch is another player that's entering year 2 that could hit that next level of premier nickel corner in the NFL, but he could play free safety. He could play nickel corner, right? And Rakestraw could be a guy that could play potentially, some free safety or some nickel corner as well. Maybe even perimeter corner. My one worry about that is he only ran a 4.51 and does appear to be a little bit slow for that position, right? Ideally, I don't like slower corners, but that's just my opinion. So, we'll see where he fits, but he's feisty, he'll tackle, he's very competitive, very smart. He's got all the things the Lions look for in that position, right? And he's going to hunt the football. So I think that their depth in their secondary has greatly improved in all aspects. Perimeter corner, nickel corner, versatility, all of it, right? Safety is primarily the same, but you have to think that a guy like Melon Fonwu, who was really coming on at the end of last season, could really take off this year. I thought he was extraordinary last season at the end of the year. I thought he played the best football of his career by far and was really taking this defense. He just really seemed to have a grasp for it. So looking forward to him ascending to the next level. Kirby Joseph, a bit inconsistent, but I still think a reliable safety overall. And like I said, you got Brian Branch, you got Rakestraw. These guys could potentially factor in as safeties as well. It would make sense given, that they have Mosley and Amik Robertson, who were signed as more of the 3 or the 4 at the corner spot, right? That would make more sense to me. Back to the defensive line. I think if there is a little bit of a worry about this team and the defense, it's like the depth of the defensive end position, the edge position, beyond Aiden Hutchinson, who's one of the NFL's best edge rushers in the league. I'd probably put him in the top 7 or 8, right? In that conversation. And they did sign Marcus Davenport, who in 2021 had 9 sacks in 11 games. And he was a first-round pick. The Saints traded up for him. High expectations. Many of the guys in the Detroit building have a lot of experience with Marcus Davenport because they were from New Orleans, right? And he battled injuries in 2022 and 2023, and things didn't work out in Minnesota and all that stuff. But Davenport could be a bit of an X factor for this team as a number 2 to Aiden Hutchinson if they can get the best out of him. And he's basically the new added dimension to the defensive line. But, Kaminsky, he was actually listed as an interior defensive lineman given all the snaps that he played at that position, but he's kind of like an inside-out type of player. He helps them against run defense, potentially on the edge, as well as in the inside as a pass rusher. He had 4 sacks. He never had more than 4 sacks in his career. James Houston was a guy that missed all of last year, basically. I think he only played 2 games. He had 8 sacks as a rookie and 10 games or something like that. So, or in 7 games, not even 10. So he's a pass rushing specialist. He's not going to be out there for the first down or the run heavy set, right? He's probably a 3rd down player. So it'll be interesting to see how they function with all these guys. Josh Paschal is still there. He hasn't really done anything. So we'll see how all these guys factor. I just wonder, without Aiden Hutchinson, if this pass rush just becomes, completely kind of like a liability. You hope that he stays healthy the entire year, but, that is a little bit of a worry for me if I'm trying to nitpick a true contender in the Lions here. Linebackers, Anzalone, Campbell, and Barnes. Campbell's the one that they got to see a jump from, right? Anzalone has become a really good linebacker, which is kind of surprising. He was always the 3rd linebacker on the Saints. Pretty athletic guy overall, good in coverage, good blitzer, put up some sacks last year. He's a heart and soul player for this defense in the middle, plays really hard. And Jack Campbell was a guy that I really liked coming out of college. I thought he was the best linebacker in that draft class last year. Sometimes linebackers take a bit of time it's just such a difficult position in today's age to play with all the coverage responsibilities and all the eye candy that offenses like the 49ers and the Rams utilize, where guys are moving left and right and you have to read all the P's and Q's and all that stuff and cross your T's and dot your I's. And it's a lot to deal with, but he's got the athleticism, he's got the size, he's got the ability. He showcased it in the run game, but in coverage is really where he needs to take that step. And he could this year. It's definitely possible with another year in the system. Barnes is also a pretty solid, complementary linebacker as well. A little bit lesser of the athlete, but a really hard-nosed player. So I look at this team overall, and the thing that I really like about the Lions is they don't really have any proper weaknesses. They don't have any areas where I'm really concerned about their CB1. I'm really concerned about their defensive end. I'm really concerned about their D tackle. I'm really concerned about their tight end. No, they don't really have any singular player or position where I'm that is going to absolutely be the reason they cannot win the Super Bowl. That is not really a part of the conversation. Right? The Lions, to me, the things that I mentioned are maybe defensive end depth or another legit pass rusher or another legit linebacker. Can Campbell step up? Can Jameson Williams step up and become the other legit receiver? If some of these questions are answered, Jahmyr Gibbs becomes a legit top 5 running back, if Sam Laporta becomes a legit 1,200-yard tight end, if Jameson becomes enough of a threat to where he's opening up everybody else, if Jared Goff is able to make a couple throws in those big moments, and if some of these younger players on defense ascend into even larger roles and become better players like Hutchinson, Branch, Campbell, the list goes on, right? Arnold is a good player in year 1. Then the Lions could certainly win the Super Bowl. When you're thinking about their competition, I think the top team they got to beat is the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are still awesome. They still have pretty much the same team. But the difference, I think, is the Lions have gotten much better in certain areas. I think they've gotten much better at corner. I think they'll have a better time covering the Niners. I think that the one thing I would say about the Lions is they maybe got the worst performance they could have potentially gotten from the Niners defense. But still, the Lions showed they could go toe-to-toe with anyone in the league last year. And that's what makes me believe that with these improvements, 2024 is potentially the best chance the Lions have ever had in their franchise history to win the whole darn thing. I really believe that the Lions could be in the Super Bowl. They really could be. The Packers, I think, are going to be tough in their division. I believe in Jordan Love, and I think Matt LaFleur is a really good coach, and they've got a lot of young players that could ascend as well. The Eagles will be tough. The Rams will be tough. But when you're thinking about that team that is now battle-hardened, is now experienced, they're now a proven commodity, but they do have a chance to take a step forward. That team is the Detroit Lions. They are the logical fit to take the next step. And I believe this could be an epic season for Lions fans. If you guys enjoyed this rant, spike the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more NFL content just like this. It's Mitch. Thank you so much for watching, Lions fans, and I'll see you soon. Peace.